I stood in front of the bathroom mirror that morning, staring at the purple bruise spreading across my cheekbone like spilled ink. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the concealer. 3 layers, 4, 5. But you could still see it if you knew where to look. And I knew he'd be looking. Have you ever tried to cover up evidence of your own nightmare? Have you ever stood there, perfecting a mask, knowing the person who did this to you is in the next room, waiting? My name is Becky, and 24 hours earlier, I thought I knew what rock bottom looked like. I was wrong. Because the worst part wasn't the hit. It wasn't even the pain exploding across my face like fireworks. The worst part was what came next. Let me take you back 3 years. 3 years of what everyone else saw as the perfect marriage. David was charming. God, was he charming. The kind of man who remembers your coffee order, who pulls out chairs, who makes everyone at the party laugh. My friends used to tell me how lucky I was. You hit the jackpot, Becky, they'd say. Where did you find him? I'd smile. I'd nod. I'd swallow the truth like poison. Because behind our white picket fence, behind the Instagram photos and the couple's Halloween costumes, there was a different David. A David whose smile could turn to ice in the time it takes to close a front door. A David whose "I love you" could become "you're worthless" before the bedroom light even turned off. Do you know what it's like to live with 2 different people in the same body? To never know which one you're going to get? The bruises started small. A grip too tight on my arm during an argument. Fingerprints that I could hide under long sleeves. Then it was a shove that sent me into the kitchen counter just hard enough to leave me gasping, not hard enough to break anything. Not yet. But Wednesday night, something snapped. We were supposed to go to his company dinner on Thursday, one of those fancy restaurant events where everyone pretends to like each other while drinking wine that costs more than my weekly grocery budget. David had been stressed about it all week, something about a promotion he wanted, some executive he needed to impress. I'd made the mistake of suggesting we skip it, just this once. I was tired, I told him. I had a headache. Maybe we could stay in, order takeout, watch a movie like we used to? His face changed. Have you ever watched someone's face change? I mean really change, like the person you know just disappears, and someone else looks back at you through their eyes? You think I work this hard so you can have headaches? His voice was so quiet. That's how I always knew it was bad, when his voice got quiet. You think I bust my ass every day so you can embarrass me? I tried to backtrack. God, I tried. No, David. I didn't mean we'll go. Of course we'll go. I'm sorry. But it was too late. It's always too late once you see that look. He grabbed my shoulders, and I remember thinking, asterisk, this is it. This is where it gets worse. Asterisk, and I was right. He shook me so hard my teeth rattled, and when I tried to pull away, his hand just. The slap echoed through our kitchen like a gunshot. I fell. Actually fell to the floor. My hand pressed against my face, tasting blood where my teeth had cut into my cheek. The pain was white hot, blinding, and for a moment I couldn't see anything except stars. Have you ever been hurt by someone you loved? Have you ever felt that specific kind of betrayal where your brain can't even process it because it's too impossible, too wrong? I looked up at him through tears, waiting for the apology, waiting for horror to cross his face, for him to realize what he'd done, waiting for him to become David again, my David, the one I married. Instead, he straightened his tie. Clean yourself up, he said. We have dinner tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Don't make me look bad. Then he walked away. Just walked away. Went upstairs, took a shower, got in bed like nothing had happened. And me? I stayed on that kitchen floor for 20 minutes, sobbing into my hands, trying to understand how my life had become this. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark next to him, this man who was snoring peacefully, while my face throbbed with every heartbeat, and I made lists in my head. Lists of all the times I should have left. Lists of all the red flags I'd ignored. Lists of all the people I'd pushed away because they'd started asking questions I couldn't answer. My sister, Claire, had tried to talk to me 6 months ago. She'd noticed something, maybe the way I flinched when David touched me unexpectedly, or the way I'd stopped voicing opinions around him. "Becky," she'd said, "you seem different. Are you okay? Is everything okay with David?" I'd laughed it off, gotten defensive, told her she was being dramatic, that marriage was work, that she wouldn't understand because she'd been single too long. I'd said cruel things I didn't mean, things that kept her at a distance where she couldn't see the truth. Now, in the darkness, I wished I could call her. I wished I could rewind 6 months and say, "No, Claire, nothing is okay. Please help me." But it was 2 a.m., and my phone was downstairs, and even if I could reach it, what would I say? "Hey sis, remember how I pushed you away? Well, you were right. He hit me. And tomorrow I have to sit across from his boss and smile like everything is perfect. Help." Have you ever felt so trapped that you can't even imagine the way out? When every door in your mind is locked and you've somehow lost all the keys? Morning came too fast. The sun rose like it had every right to, like the world hadn't fundamentally changed the night before. David's alarm went off at 6 a.m. He shut it off, stretched, and turned to me with that smile. That practiced, perfect smile. "Morning, beautiful," he said, and kissed my forehead, right above the bruise. I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw at him, to make him hurt the way I was hurting. Instead, I whispered, "Morning. Big day," he said, already scrolling through his phone. "This dinner is crucial, Becky. Anderson's going to be there. He's the one making decisions about the VP position. I need you on your A game tonight." My A game. Like I was part of his performance. A prop in his carefully constructed show. "I'll be ready," I heard myself say. He looked at me then, really looked, and his eyes went to my cheek. For a second, just a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt? Regret? But then it was gone, replaced by calculation. "Make sure you cover that up well," he said. "Use the good concealer. The one I bought you." He bought it for me, 3 months ago, after the first time his accident left a mark. He'd come home from work with a bag from Sephora, kissed me, and said, "I'm sorry, baby. Let me make it better." As if expensive makeup could erase what he'd done. As if I was the problem that needed covering. I spent 2 hours getting ready. 2 hours painting on a face that looked almost normal. Almost happy. Almost like a woman whose husband hadn't slapped her 12 hours earlier. The bruise was still visible if you looked closely, a shadow under the makeup, a slight swelling, but in the right light, with the right angle, I could pass for fine. Isn't that what I'd become? A woman who could pass for fine? David approved my appearance with a nod. "Better," he said. "Remember, tonight is about listening, agreeing, and being charming. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. Because what else could I say? The restaurant was one of those places where the menu doesn't list prices and the waiters wear expressions of practiced superiority. We were the first to arrive at the table, a large circular booth in the back, already set with 7 place settings. David's hand found the small of my back, possessive and performative all at once. "Smile," he whispered. "They're watching." So I smiled. I smiled as his colleagues arrived, Mark and his wife Jennifer, Scott and his girlfriend Amber, and finally, the man of the hour, Thomas Anderson and his wife. His wife, Catherine. Have you ever met someone and immediately felt like they could see right through you? Like all your secrets were written in a language only they could read? Catherine Anderson was in her mid-50s, elegant in a way that had nothing to do with her expensive clothes. She had sharp eyes behind her glasses and a firm handshake that lingered just a moment too long when she took mine. "Becky," she said, looking at me, really looking. "It's lovely to finally meet you. David talks about you constantly." "All good things, I hope," I said, the script rolling off my tongue automatically. "Of course." Her eyes hadn't left my face. Was she looking at the bruise? Could she see it under all the makeup? My heart started racing. We all slid into the booth. David made sure we were positioned right next to Thomas, with Catherine on my other side, perfect proximity for impressing the boss. David's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing just hard enough to remind me of his expectations. The dinner started as these things always do. Wine was ordered, bottles of it, red and white both. Appetizers appeared like magic. The men talked about work, about market projections and quarterly earnings and other things that I'd learned to nod along to without really listening. David was in his element. Charming, witty, engaged. He told a story about a client meeting that had everyone laughing. He complimented Thomas on his leadership. He was perfect. And I was the perfect wife beside him. Laughing at the right moments, adding small comments that made me seem interested without drawing too much attention, sipping my wine slowly while David's glass was refilled again and again. But Catherine wasn't participating in the work talk. Instead, she was watching, and every time I glanced her way, those sharp eyes were on me. "Becky," she said during a lull in conversation, "David mentioned you used to be a teacher. Do you still work?" The question landed like a grenade in the middle of the table. David's hand tightened on my knee. Warning. Careful. "No," I said, keeping my voice light. "I left teaching after we got married. It was just too stressful to balance with everything else." It was the agreed-upon answer. The safe answer. Never mind that I'd loved teaching. Never mind that David had insisted I quit because he needed me at home and couldn't have a wife who was too tired to take care of him. Never mind that I'd cried for a week after I turned in my plain resignation. "That's a shame," Catherine said. "Teachers are so valuable. I imagine you must miss it." "Sometimes," I admitted before I could stop myself. David's fingers dug into my leg, a punishment I'd pay for later. "What did you teach?" Catherine asked. "Third grade, English and creative writing." "Ah, the age where they still love learning, before the world tells them to stop asking questions." Catherine took a sip of her wine, her eyes never leaving mine. "My mother was a teacher. She used to say that teaching was one of the only professions where you could see exactly when you'd made a difference. In the moment a child's eyes light up with understanding." Why was she doing this? Why was she pulling this thread? "It was like that," I said quietly. And suddenly, my eyes were burning with unexpected tears. It was exactly like that. David's laugh cut through the moment. "Well, she's making a difference now by supporting me. Right, honey?" He pulled me close, kissing my temple. To everyone else, it looked affectionate. Only I could feel how hard his fingers were pressing into my side. Only I could hear the edge in his voice. "Right," I whispered. The main courses arrived. David ordered for me without asking. He always did. Salmon. Because he'd decided I needed to watch my figure. Never mind that I'd have preferred the pasta Jennifer was having, or the steak that made Amber's eyes light up. Do you know what it's like to lose the right to order your own food? To have someone else control even that small choice? The men's conversation shifted to sports. David was holding court again, and I felt myself fading into the background the way I always did at these dinners. Just another decoration. Another piece of the perfect life David had constructed. But then Catherine leaned closer to me. "That's quite a bruise you're trying to hide," she said quietly. So only I could hear. My entire body went cold. My hand automatically moved to my cheek, as if I could somehow hide it better, make it disappear through sheer force of will. "It's nothing. I walked into a cabinet door. So clumsy." The lie tasted like ash on my tongue. Catherine didn't say anything for a long moment. She just looked at me with those eyes that saw too much, knew too much. Then she said, "I walked into a lot of cabinet doors once, for about 5 years. Until one day, I stopped walking into them and started walking away instead." The words hung in the air between us. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Did she know? How could she know? "Catherine," I started, but I didn't know how to finish the sentence. She reached into her purse and slipped something into my hand under the table. "A business card." "My personal cell phone," she said. "If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands cabinet doors." I clutched the card like a lifeline, sliding it into my own purse with shaking hands. The dinner continued. Dessert was served, some elaborate chocolate thing that I pushed around my plate while David held court. He was drinking more now, his laugh getting louder, his touches getting more possessive. His hand kept finding my shoulder, my back, my neck always touching, always claiming. Thomas was impressed. I could tell by the way he nodded along to David's stories, by the way he laughed at David's jokes. The promotion was as good as David's, everything was going according to his plan. Until Catherine opened her mouth again. "Thomas," she said during a pause in conversation, her voice carrying clearly across the table. "Didn't you say last week that you were looking for someone to head up that new educational initiative, the one focused on supporting women re-entering the workforce?" Thomas looked surprised. "Yes, actually, we're having trouble finding the right person. Why?" "Well," Catherine said, gesturing to me, "you have a former teacher right here at your table. Becky has experience in education and would probably bring a unique perspective to a program designed to help women find their footing again." Every eye at the table turned to me. David's hand was suddenly on my shoulder, gripping hard enough to leave marks. "Oh, Becky's not looking for work," he said quickly, his voice tight with forced cheerfulness. "She's happy at home, aren't you, honey?" It was a test. Another test. Say yes, and let this moment pass. Let Catherine's offer die on the table. Let myself fade back into the background where I belonged in David's world. But something in Catherine's eyes, something in the way she'd shared her own story, in the way she'd seen through my makeup to the truth underneath, made me pause. When was the last time someone had asked me what I wanted? When was the last time someone had seen me as Becky, not as David's wife? I started, and David's grip tightened. A warning, a threat. Be careful. The whole table was watching now. Jennifer, Scott, Amber, Mark, all of them sensing some shift in the air, some tension they couldn't quite name. Do you know what it feels like to stand at the edge of a cliff? To know that one step forward will change everything, but you can't see the bottom? I would actually love to hear more about it, I heard myself say. I've missed working. I've missed having something that's mine. David's face went white, then red. His smile stayed fixed, but his eyes promised consequences. Later, when we were alone, when there were no witnesses. "Wonderful," Thomas said, completely oblivious to the undercurrent of rage coming from David. "Why don't you and Catherine exchange information? We can set up a meeting next week." "That won't be necessary," David cut in, his voice sharp enough to slice. "Becky's confused. She doesn't." "I think Becky knows her own mind," Catherine interrupted calmly. "Don't you, Becky?" And there it was. The moment. The cliff's edge. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to back down, to apologize, to laugh it off and let David save face. Because I knew God. I knew what would happen when we got home. I knew the price I'd pay for this small rebellion. But I was so tired. Tired of shrinking. Tired of lying. Tired of painting over bruises and pretending cabinet doors were my enemy. "Yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper but somehow the loudest sound in the room. "I do know my own mind." The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. David was silent beside me, radiating fury. The other guests tried to fill the awkward silence with forced conversation, but everyone could feel it, the shift, the crack in the perfect facade. Catherine caught my eye as we were leaving. She mouthed 2 words, "You're brave." But I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. Because David's silence in the car was worse than any yelling could have been. Because his white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel promised violence. Because I knew that crossing him publicly, embarrassing him in front of his boss, was the worst thing I could have done. Have you ever made a choice that you knew would bring pain, but made it anyway because the alternative was losing yourself entirely? We pulled into our driveway. The house looked so normal from the outside. Our neighbors had their porch lights on. Someone was walking their dog down the street. Everything was so painfully, deceptively normal. David didn't say a word as we walked inside. Didn't say a word as he took off his jacket, loosened his tie. The silence was suffocating, crushing. Then he turned to me. "What?" he said, his voice deadly quiet. "Did you think you were doing?" "David, you embarrassed me." Each word was enunciated carefully, precisely. "You made me look weak in front of Anderson. Do you understand what you've done? Do you understand what you've cost me?" I just wanted to. What you want doesn't matter. The explosion finally came. What you want has never mattered. You are my wife. Your job is to support me, to make me look good, not to undermine me in front of the person deciding my career. He was advancing on me now, and I was backing up, backing away, my heart hammering in my chest. You think you can just do whatever you want? Think you can disrespect me like that? His hand was rising, and I knew what was coming next. But something in me had changed at that dinner. Something in Catherine's eyes, in her story about cabinet doors, in the way she'd seen me as a person worth saving. Don't. The word came out stronger than I expected. Don't you dare hit me again. David stopped, his hand frozen in midair. For a second, he looked shocked. I don't think I'd ever said no to him before. Not really. Not like this. What did you say? His voice was dangerous. My phone was in my purse. Catherine's card was in my purse. And suddenly, I knew if I didn't do something right now, this would be my whole life. This fear, this pain, this slow erasure of everything I used to be. I said, don't hit me, I repeated, and my hand moved to my purse. I'm done, David. I'm done with this. You're not going anywhere. He grabbed my wrist. You're my wife. You don't get to just leave. Yes, I said, yanking my hand away with strength I didn't know I had. I do. I didn't sleep in that house that night. I couldn't. Instead, I locked myself in the bathroom with my phone and my purse and Catherine's card. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial the number. She answered on the second ring. Catherine, it's Becky. I need help. Please, I need help. Where are you? Her voice was calm, solid, everything I needed in that moment. I'm still at home, but I can't stay. He's downstairs and I'm scared and I don't know what to do. Okay. Listen to me, Becky. Do you have a safe place you can go right now? Family? Friends? My sister. I could call my sister. Good. Call her. Get out of there tonight. Then tomorrow, we're going to figure this out together. You're not alone anymore. Do you hear me? You're not alone. I was crying now. Ugly sobs that I tried to muffle against my hand. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. I know you, Catherine said gently. I know you because I was you, and someone helped me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to help you. Through the bathroom door, I could hear David pacing, muttering. The house that had been my prison for 3 years felt like it was closing in around me. Call your sister, Catherine said. Then call me back. I'll stay on the line as long as you need. Claire answered on the first ring. Becky? What's wrong? And finally I told her the truth. All of it. The bruises, the control, the fear. 6 months of distance dissolved in seconds as my sister became the lifeline I'd always needed. I'm coming to get you, she said. Pack a bag. I'll be there in 20 minutes. If he tries to stop you, call the police. I mean it, Becky. 20 minutes. It was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I threw clothes into a bag with shaking hands, listening to David's movements downstairs. Every creak of the floorboard sent ice through my veins. What if he came up? What if he stopped me? What if... But Claire's headlights appeared in the window like a rescue beacon. I grabbed my bag, took one last look at the bedroom I'd shared with my abuser, and ran. David appeared at the bottom of the stairs as I was opening the front door. Where do you think you're going? Away from you, I said, and walked out the door. He followed me onto the porch, but Claire was already out of her car, phone in hand. Take one more step toward her, she called out. And I'm calling the police. Try me, David. For once in his life, David didn't have a comeback. He just stood there, impotent and furious, as I got into my sister's car and we drove away. That was 3 months ago. 3 months of therapy. 3 months of learning that the voice in my head that told me I was worthless, that told me I deserved the pain, that told me I'd never survive without him, that wasn't my voice. It was his voice. His voice that I'd internalized so deeply I'd mistaken it for truth. 3 months of crying, of anger, of grief for the person I used to be and the time I'd lost. but also 3 months of healing, of slowly remembering who Becky was before she became David's wife, of rediscovering the woman who loved teaching, who had opinions, who took up space in the world without apologizing for it. Catherine kept her word. She connected me with resources, lawyers, shelters, support groups. She introduced me to other women who'd survived what I'd survived. She reminded me, over and over, that leaving wasn't weak. Staying would have been what killed me. The divorce was filed last month. David tried to fight it, of course. Tried to paint me as unstable, as dramatic, as a wife who'd abandoned her vows. But funny thing about documentation, those photos I'd taken of the bruises, the texts from Claire about my accidents, the testimony from Catherine about what she'd witnessed, it all added up to a story David couldn't charm his way out of. And the job? The educational initiative position? I start next week. Do you know what it's like to wake up and not be afraid? To drink your coffee and not calculate the mood of the person in the next room? To look in the mirror and see a healing face instead of a canvas for concealer? It feels like breathing after being underwater for years. I'm not going to tell you that leaving was easy. It wasn't. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. There are still nights when I wake up in Claire's spare bedroom, heart racing, convinced I hear David's footsteps. There are still moments when I doubt myself, when his voice in my head whispers that I'm nothing without him. But those moments are getting quieter. And my own voice, my real voice, is getting louder. I think about that dinner sometimes, about how one woman's courage to speak up changed the entire trajectory of my life. About how Catherine saw me, really saw me, and decided I was worth saving. How many of us are walking around with hidden bruises? How many of us are masters at covering up, at explaining away, at surviving in plain sight? And how many of us need just one person to look closer, to ask the right question, to offer a lifeline when we're drowning? Here's what I want you to know. If you're out there and you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, you deserve to be loved without fear. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to have opinions, dreams, a career, choices about your own dinner order. You deserve to exist without walking on eggshells. You deserve to be more than someone's possession. And if you're not getting those things, if you're covering bruises, literal or metaphorical, if you're shrinking yourself to make someone else comfortable, if you're afraid of the person who's supposed to love you, it's not love. I know it's terrifying. I know he's told you that you can't survive without him, that no one else would want you, that you're crazy or dramatic or too sensitive. I know he's isolated you from the people who would help. I know he's made you believe this is normal, or that it's your fault, or that it will get better if you just try harder. But let me tell you something David never wanted me to know. You are stronger than you think. The fear is lying to you. And there are people waiting to help you, you just have to reach out your hand. It's been 3 months, and I'm still learning how to be myself again. Still learning that I'm allowed to say no. Still learning that taking care of my own needs isn't selfish. Still learning that the right person will never make me afraid. But I'm learning. And that's more than I could have said when I was standing in front of that mirror, covering bruises, preparing to smile through a dinner where my abuser would be praised for being charming. Catherine called me last week. "How are you doing?" she asked. "I'm doing," I said. "Some days are harder than others. But I'm doing." "That's all you need to do," she said. "Just keep doing. The rest will come." She's right. The rest is coming. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, it's coming. I have my sister back. I have friends who I'm reconnecting with. Explaining the distance. Rebuilding bridges I thought I'd burned forever. I have therapy appointments where I'm learning to recognize my own voice again. I have job interviews where I get to talk about my skills, my passions, my future, not his. I have a life that's mine. Is it perfect? No. I'm living in my sister's spare room. I'm rebuilding my finances from nothing because David controlled every penny. I'm jumping at shadows and sleeping with the lights on. I'm grieving the time I lost and the person I could have been if I'd left sooner. But I'm alive. Really alive. Not just surviving, but actually living. And every morning when I look in the mirror, I see a little more of myself looking back. The bruise on my face has faded now, but the bruises on my soul, those are taking longer to heal. Some days I wonder if they ever will completely. Maybe I'll always carry some scar tissue, some tender places where the damage went deep. But you know what? I think that's okay. Those scars are proof that I survived, proof that I was strong enough to leave, proof that I chose myself, even when it was the scariest thing I'd ever done. David lost his promotion, by the way. Thomas Anderson apparently decided that someone who can't respect his own wife probably can't respect his colleagues either. Funny how that works. Turns out Catherine told her husband what she'd witnessed that night, not just at dinner, but over months of company events where she'd watched David's behavior, noticed the small signs of control and possession. Sometimes I feel guilty about that. Like I ruined his career. Then I remember, I didn't ruin anything. He did. Every time he chose violence, every time he chose control over partnership, every time he chose his image over my humanity, his consequences are not my responsibility to carry. So why am I telling you all of this? Why am I sharing the most painful, shameful chapter of my life with strangers on the internet? Because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone out there is standing in front of a mirror right now, covering bruises and wondering if this is all there is. Someone out there is at a dinner table, smiling while dying inside, believing they have to keep playing a role in someone else's story. Someone out there thinks they're alone. And I need you to know, you're not alone. There are Catherines everywhere, people who see, who know, who are ready to help. You just have to let them. You just have to take that terrifying first step of admitting the truth. I know it's hard. God, do I know it's hard. I know you love him. I know you remember who he used to be. I know you keep hoping he'll change back into that person. I know you've invested years, maybe decades, into this relationship. I know walking away feels impossible, but staying might actually kill you. If not physically, then spiritually. It will kill the person you're meant to be. It will kill your dreams, your voice, your light. Is that really how you want to spend your one precious life? I went back to the house last week to get the last of my things. David wasn't there, the lawyers had arranged it that way. But walking through those rooms felt like visiting a crime scene. The kitchen where he hit me. The bedroom where I lay awake in fear. The bathroom where I'd hidden and called Catherine, shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I looked at the space where I'd suffered, where I'd shrunk myself down to nothing, where I'd lost 3 years of my life to fear. And you know what I felt? Not anger, surprisingly, not even sadness. I felt free. Because those walls don't contain me anymore. That man doesn't define me anymore. That chapter is closed. I'm writing a new story now, one where I'm the hero, not the victim, one where I save myself instead of waiting to be saved, one where I take up exactly as much space as I deserve, which is all of it. If you're still reading this, if you've made it this far, maybe it's because you see yourself in my story. Maybe your David has a different name. Maybe your bruises are in different places, or maybe they're not physical at all. Maybe you're not being hit, but you're being hollowed out by words, by control, by someone slowly convincing you that you're worthless. Let me tell you what I wish someone had told me 3 years ago. This is not love. This is not what you deserve. And you have the power to leave. I know you don't feel powerful right now. I know you feel trapped. But that feeling is a lie he's told you so many times you've started to believe it. The truth is, you've been powerful this whole time. You've survived things that would have broken other people. You've endured and adapted and found ways to exist in an impossible situation. That takes tremendous strength. Now imagine what you could do if you used that strength to build a life instead of just surviving one. There's a question I get asked a lot now, in support groups and therapy. Do you regret marrying him? And the truth is, it's complicated. Do I regret the abuse? Obviously. Do I regret the lost time, the trauma, the pain? Of course. But do I regret the journey that led me to where I am now? Do I regret learning my own strength? Do I regret discovering that I could survive what felt unsurvivable? I can't regret those lessons, even though I wish I'd learned them differently. I'm not grateful for what David did to me. But I am grateful for who I became in spite of him. I'm grateful for Catherine's courage in speaking up. I'm grateful for my sister's immediate response when I finally called. I'm grateful for every person who saw me and really looked, who asked if I was okay, who offered help even when I wasn't ready to accept it yet. And I'm grateful for the woman looking back at me in the mirror now, a little broken, a lot stronger, entirely mine. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you're in a relationship where you're afraid, where you're controlled, where you're hurt, please reach out. Tell someone, anyone, call a hotline, talk to a friend, email a coworker, message a family member you haven't spoken to in years. Take that first terrifying step. Because on the other side of that step is a life where you're not afraid anymore, where you can be yourself without apologizing for it, where you can dream again, want things again, exist fully again. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? God, yes. 3 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought leaving would destroy me. Instead, staying was what was destroying me. Leaving saved me. And if you're out there, reading this, thinking about your own David, your own bruises, your own fear, please know that you can be saved too. You deserve to be saved. You deserve to save yourself. What's your story? Have you ever felt trapped in a situation that seemed impossible to escape? Have you ever had someone look at you and really see you, the way Catherine saw me? Share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who might need to hear your story of survival, of courage, of choosing yourself. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Be their Catherine. Be the person who sees, who speaks up, who offers a lifeline. We all have that power. We can all be the person who stops someone's scroll and reminds them, you deserve better. You deserve safety. You deserve love without fear. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for bearing witness to my pain and my healing. Thank you for being here. And if you're the person who needed to hear this today, thank you for being brave enough to keep reading. Thank you for considering that maybe, just maybe, there's another way. There is another way. I promise you. There is another way. You just have to take the first step.